days, there wasn't that much out there on Lovecraft. So I did what I could. Then the cast biography came out, first major biography. I loved it. I thought it was fabulous just because it had a connected narrative of the whole of Lovecraft's life. And I said, that's it. I was Lovecraftian for life.
See, this is what fascinates me. Everybody can read a person, be attracted to him, pursue it, but then you kept going.
I think I always had a sort of, I wouldn't say academic, certainly not that, but just a sort of a scholarly bent, because both my parents were professors, and so that was the environment I grew up in. Now, I wanted to be a fiction writer, and I started writing fiction as early as 1973 when I was like 15. It was terrible stuff, and early on it was not Lovecraftian because I hadn't read Lovecraft very much. Later on I did try writing Lovecraftian pastiches.
Yeah.
They were just as bad or worse. But at some point I discovered, I'm not a fiction writer. Let me switch to literary criticism. Not that I knew anything about that either
But
at that age.
I'm calling my book Pursuits.
Yes.
Were you at some point then in a pursuit of this character in everything that means?
I was, because at that time he was so little known. Now his books or his fiction was getting popular. It was in all these paperback editions. In fact, I was flabbergasted when Time magazine in June of 1973 published a sort of a long review of some of these Ballantine paperbacks, and Lovecraft's getting on the map, but he was still extremely obscure, little known. Very few people I knew had read him. Even among my friends who were all reading science fiction and fantasy and whatnot, even they didn't know much about Lovecraft. So I said, I felt alone in pursuing this thing. It was kind of like my own personal quest, as it were.
But like all pursuits, it can take its toll in time, money, concentration, private life.
To be sure. But I was lucky to have gotten involved with the Lovecraft group. At that time, Dirk Mosig was a professor down in Georgia, and I got in touch with him in '75. And he led me, for the next 5 years, I was like his student practically. And then, of course, somebody said, most of Lovecraft's papers are at Brown University. You should go to Brown University. Now, great Ivy League institution. What chance I had to get in? Well, I got in. It's funny. I got, my mother, bless her heart, said, you're only applying to Yale, Brown, and Harvard. If you don't get into those schools, well, tough luck, guy. I got into Yale, I got into Brown, I got put on Harvard's waiting list, so I said Harvard. I don't want to go to Harvard anyway. My mother begged me to go to Yale because she thinks it was more prestigious, and maybe it was, but I said nope.
Nothing wrong with Brown.
I'm going to Brown to study H.P. Lovecraft.
So that's the incentive for Brown.
And I did.
That's
to say
a pursuit.
nothing, although I'll tell you, I had a great education at Brown, and I didn't study in the English department. I switched to classics. I studied Latin, Greek, ancient history, ancient philosophy, and that has benefited me in more ways than I can even think about. But every moment I wasn't in class, I was at the library looking at Lovecraft papers and manuscripts.
Now,
and things.
looking back at the young person you were at that time, how would you describe yourself?
I was still very shy, very withdrawn. I didn't make friends easily, although when I did make friends, I was very loyal, and they were apparently loyal to me. I got in touch with Mark Michaud pretty early on. He's a year younger than me, and he had already started Necronomicon Press, and especially when he came to Brown a year later, we were very fast friends, and we formed a little a network of 3 or 4 people who were very much interested in Lovecraft, and had sometimes daily meetings or nightly meetings, as the case may be, and we just thrashed out all kinds of things, and I started helping him with his press, and that's how I got into print.
This pursuit has a social component for you.
It does. Lovecraftians do like to get together because then, and in some ways even now, we feel we're sort of like a secret society. Lovecraft's hugely popular now, but I wouldn't exactly say he's a household term. I mean, Cthulhu is a household name. Lovecraft may not be.
But it's not the same, is it, when everybody knows about him, as opposed to when you were one of the select few.
I feel as if, thanks to my own efforts and others, Lovecraft's gotten out there and escaped my personal control, which is fine, frankly. I'm still kind of the guy doing Lovecraft stuff, and I've literally just finished editing with David Schultz the complete letters of Lovecraft, and that is a great epitaph. 24 volumes of his letters. That's enough.
So now we're at the far end of the telescope. 2024, July.
Well, yes. I mean, I've edited Lovecraft's stories, essays, poems, and letters. Literally every word of Lovecraft is in print in my editions through Hippocampus.
Are you
Press.
still in any way that young man then?
Oh God, yes. in the sense that I can cast my mind back so easily to how I was. Now, in some ways, in terms of character and other things, I'm quite different. I mean, I was a very tormented individual back then. I just was, full of angst and anxiety and whatever. And I don't think I'm that way now. I've pretty comfortable in life, and I'm having a good time, and I'm pretty cheerful. But I think Lovecraft went through phases of depression. I don't know that I was seriously depressed, but I could understand why he felt a lack of self-confidence and things like that, because I felt that way too sometimes.
Now, the great British biographer Richard Holmes is a part of my book. He is the guy that says there's no way you're ever going to actually find or encounter your subject. You can pursue it, but you may not actually ever capture it.
Oh yeah, Lovecraft always escapes anybody's grasp. There's always more to him, or things that he hasn't revealed. I mean, he is extraordinarily revealing for a person who seemed like this, button-down New Englander, very reserved apparently, but not in letters. I'll tell you, he lets it all hang out, and he reveals more of himself in letters than I have ever encountered any human being to have done.
In your background, are you aware of other such pursuits by other people who have pursued a writer to the extent where you've traveled and written and published and all of that?
Well,
I'm thinking of Don Albright and Bradbury.
Well, I don't want to compare myself to the great critics or biographers, but Leon Edel, if that's how you pronounce his
Henry
name,
James.
With Henry James, I wouldn't say I liken myself to him because he's a great scholar and a great biographer, and I would never be on his level. But I can see somebody, I've devoted myself to Lovecraft the way he has done to James, and there are probably others out there. I think, actually, I just recently was studying Franz Kafka, and his friend Max Brod certainly devoted his life, after Kafka's death, to kind of curating Kafka's work and his life.
Pursuits that have benefited the world, not just private.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope I've had some influence. I mean, and I like to think that I do consider Lovecraft's bad sides as well as his good sides. Although even that's sort of subjective in some ways, but I don't sugarcoat Lovecraft. I'm afraid Max Brod did to some regard, but that's it.
Do you have any patience with those who want their heroes to be unblemished, untarnished? That's a falsification.
It's absurd. I mean, it's there's enough good in Lovecraft that we can sort of say, well, the bad it's unfortunate, but that's the way he was. There are reasons why he was that way. Let's just consider the good stuff, and that good stuff is incredibly good. His fiction will live for many, many years.
We need to let our heroes be human.
That's right. I mean, if you're looking for perfection, you'll never find it. Everybody has flaws. Everybody has something, or at least that comes to be looked upon with disfavor. Everything changes. Maybe what we think of Lovecraft, the bad sides of Lovecraft, will change. I mean, who knows what the future brings?
Last question. He has enriched your life in a way?
I see Lovecraft, for me and for others too, as a gateway. He has led me in so many other directions, not just in terms of other writers, like some of his predecessors, Lord Dunsany, Arthur Machen, Algernon Blackwood, or his successors like Ramsey Campbell and Ted Klein and others, but in things like atheism. I have written a huge 2-volume history of atheism whose inspiration at root was H.P. Lovecraft, because when I first read his letters at the age of 15 or 16, he convinced me that atheism was correct, and he made very cogent arguments for it.
Now, look out. In this business of pursuits, are there people pursuing you now to seek you out?
I hope not. But if there are,
I am.
I have left my record out there. I published 3 volumes of my personal journals from my 20s and 30s. They're out there if you want to read them. I can't imagine everybody who does, but apparently some people have read them. And I've written my memoirs. Let me say that that book, What Is Anything, is expurgated in some regards, because some of the people I talk about are still alive, and I don't want to invade their privacy. I don't care about my privacy. I care about their privacy. I'm an open book. I will tell you anything you want to know, at least in private, because I don't care anymore. I've reached the stage where I am comfortable in my own skin. And if you want to find flaws in me, fine. won't affect me.
But how nice to know that you have found, you have pursued, you have enriched as a result. You can forgive yourself a smile of smug satisfaction, I think.
I hope so. I've enjoyed every minute of it. Believe me. I mean, there have been times of effort and times of tedium and sometimes even times of anguish. But on the whole, I Lovecraft in particular has so enriched my life and so motivated my life and actions that I hold him in the highest regard.